Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Soberful podcast. I'm Veronica.
I'm Chip.
And we're going to talk today about microdosing. We have some thoughts and opinions. And before we just get into that, if you like and enjoy the show, please make sure you hit the subscribe button so you follow the show and you get a notification when a new episode drops. And if you have a second to give us a quick rating on whatever app or platform you listen on, we'd be so grateful. It really helps with the show getting noticed and all that kind of stuff. So if you could just do that for us, we'd be really grateful. So Chip, I've been wanting to do this for a while. Microdosing is one of those things that you didn't hear about, and then you just start hearing about it everywhere, and it's a trend. And I've
Yeah.
been looking into it, and I have some thoughts and some feelings and some opinions, and I wanted to talk about it. And the reason is I'll tell you from my perspective, I did hallucinogenics as a teenager, and when I was 18, I went into drug-induced psychosis and I was suicidal for years. Hallucinogenics really, really terrify me. So I do have a biased view there. Like I'm not going anywhere near them for any reason ever. And I'm seeing this, rise in this microdosing culture amongst, I want to say, the elite and also young people. And I just thought, we could have a discussion about this because there's a lot of things. What are your first thoughts about microdosing and how it's sort of seeping into the culture now, more widespread?
Okay. Well, I got lots. First of all, I have got two historical things because I'm old enough to do this. I also, you can't have gone through the 60s and not taken acid. And I took it about 5 times, I think. I had 3 really quite good experiences and 2 truly, truly awful experiences. And I never took it again because the thing I didn't like about it was you couldn't control the outcome of it. Once you were off and running, there was nothing you could take to stop it happening. Whereas, there were various things you could take to stop having too much speed or taking too much. So for me, I didn't like the fact that you couldn't control it. I'm also old enough to remember that when there was a guy called R.D. Laing, particularly in the 60s, who was using acid for therapy in the same sort of way as it's beginning to be used now. But it was very unregulated. It was very kind of, I'm trying to think of those a famous American one as well, who kind of just sort of got just very cavalier with it all. And, I'm sure some people did have some good experience, but a lot of people at that time had some really traumatic and very difficult experiences. Nowadays, I am definitely like you, seeing an emergence of clinically used hallucinogenics, microdosing for therapeutic purposes. I'm seeing that, and we can obviously talk about that. My big concern, I mean, I have concerns about that as well, but I have my concern is how it's bled out, as you said, into society, and words sort of got out that therapists are using hallucinogenics. It must be okay for us to use it, and the difference between the kind of the quantities and the quality of what has been given to people therapeutically is completely different to the sort of stuff that people are using at festivals. And I do think it's quite a high-end drug. I don't know whether that's true or not. I think most drugs eventually, cover everybody. But I do think that there is a real misconception that taking yourself into a sort of alternative state is a really good and healthy thing to do. And I think that it needs to be treated with extreme caution, because I think I've seen it have some impact therapeutically with 2 clients who were very, very traumatized and shut down as a result of that. And I did see it have a positive impact on that in allowing for a breakthrough to happen. But I have to say that, there really is such a difference between the quantities and the quality of whatever the hallucinogenic is. I mean, in some places, some therapies are using small doses of ketamine now, also to kind of elicit a breakthrough, a mental breakthrough, to sort of break down some barriers that have been so implanted that it's difficult for somebody to access what they need to access. Now, I'm seeing that growing. I've been in, as you quite well know, in this business long enough to know and watch various different techniques that have come in and they've all been, hailed as the next great breakthrough. Even things like equine therapy, that's going to help everybody with trauma to deal with, go and play with some horses. And, I'm sure there are some people who benefited from it, but I've seen so many, and this feels like this decade's trend is we're going to start using, and we're going to start playing around with hallucinogenics with clients. It feels very lax in control at the moment. I do know that obviously that the therapists, I don't know, I presume that all the therapists who are using it, especially in the area of London where I work, are totally trained, totally qualified, totally using, extremely well prepared hallucinogenics. But my concern is that the word has got out, and I've got clients who are vaping, microdosing. They buy little things that look like vapes, and they sort of, you get it in chocolate, you get it in all kinds of things. And everybody, in the same sort of way that people used to prattle on about the quality of this particular weed, it comes from the eastern slopes of the Tibetan mountains. People are now doing that with, this quality. Oh, the man who makes this chocolate acid is he really knows what he's doing. Does he? Maybe he does. I don't know, but it feels a bit cavalier what's happening in the general public. Therapeutically, I think it's going to be something that we have to learn to live with, and I think we're going to have to. There may well be some people who will benefit from it, but I think that all these things are open to malpractice and misinterpretation, which I think is going to be something that's going to be very difficult to deal with.
So there's several things so I just want to say about equine therapy. It's a type of therapy that can help certain groups, like people with trust issues and children in particular. But it's not for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody.
No,
there's lots of, but also it doesn't involve drugs. So there's so much here about. First of all, where I'm at is it seems like under very controlled circumstances with pharmaceutical grade hallucinogenics of different sorts created in a laboratory with knowing exactly what the dose is under very controlled situations, people with real significant deep depression and really significant trauma can benefit. And I'm all for that. Again, it's different for different people. Now, one of my fears is the thing is about hallucinogenics, and I know I've seen it, and I know you must have seen it, is, and I don't know, I didn't go into, so it can trigger things like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. It triggered something in me. Like I the same, I had a few good experiences, and a lot of it when we used it in the 80s, it was the cost. I don't know, it was like $3 for 12 hours of entertainment instead of going to the pub, which would be a lot more. And then when I had, the bad experience I had was on magic mushrooms, and who knows what was in that. And that one event affected me for at least 10 years. And it changed my life, and it was horrible. I mean, it took me to the brink of being suicidal. It triggered auditory hallucinations. And the thing is, you don't know. Like, none of us, we don't know. There's so much we don't know about our brains. You don't know, at whatever age you are, that you have a brain, that something is in there that with the right chemical compound is going to open up a whole bunch of shit that is going to have very long lasting effects. So that's the first thing that really concerns me about people. And I've seen that in, I can think of at least a couple of clients who really were just mucking around with it, really not, and it, bang, that's it. 20 years they've been in and out of clinical institutions with, diagnosed schizophrenia, all of that kind of stuff. So there's also, what is bugging me is I feel like microdosing, it's the new hot thing, and it's amongst the elites.
Yep.
And I feel like, for me, I'm just like, it's high-end drinking is what it is. If you guys, we did an episode a few months ago on high-end drinking, which is people who drink very, very expensive champagne and wine and whiskey. They don't have an alcohol problem. They're connoisseurs of how it's made and and we're just like, no, it's still ethanol. You're still getting a buzz. You're still dressing it up very fancy to not feel your feelings. And microdosing feels the same for me. It's like, there's an argument that they don't drink alcohol because alcohol's bad for them. Great. But they've found another drug. They're microdosing. And there's still something about, I read, there was an article, I read it about a mum who was, she was overwhelmed, and, being a mum's very hard, of little kids. She was overwhelmed, all of these things. And it was really, really helping her. And I just thought, and that just made me feel really sad.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's really sad. And are you driving when you're microdosing? Because it's not like alcohol where you have some kind of idea of, I've had 3 glasses, in 5 hours, I should be okay to, it's not like, it's like you said, you have no idea. Trust me, drug dealers don't give a flying crap about your health and well-being. They don't care at all.
No, and there are plenty of reasons. I mean, that's why you get the occasional ecstasy death, and certainly when people are buying sort of home manufactured pills and drugs, is because they're not being made under controlled circumstances, and you can get a little batch that is super strong, and I do have a real problem with young people whose brains are still, your brain is still developing till you're about 24, 25, I think. Your brain is still developing. And to sort of start messing about with it in a way, it's a dangerous game to play. And I do come down quite sort of, rather like you, I come down very heavily on the side of, you need to be really careful what you're messing about with there. I mean, we all know the impact of what alcohol can do to the liver and and the throat and various internal. That's a very well trodden path. We know exactly what alcohol does, and it's not great. It's not healthy. It's not a good thing anyway. But we know, we've done lots and lots of research on it. I'm not sure that we've done anything like the research necessary. I think it's kind of suddenly burst on us as been sold to us as being sort of some new breakthrough. And, ayahuasca is another hallucinogenic. And I know for certain that there are a lot of people making a lot of money off people who are, as you said, maybe the elite wealthy people who are able to go away on ayahuasca retreats. And, people I know do it sort of 3 times a year, which kind of somehow defeats to me,
I think that whole thing is BS. I think it's complete BS.
Well, I'm afraid I do. I'm afraid I do as well. I think it feels like money for old rope for me. But I'm sure there are people who are going to be going, no, I had a major breakthrough. I learned everything about myself. Okay, well, why do you keep on needing to go back again and again and again? There's only so much you can learn about yourself. But I think to me, it's the fact that, as you said there about driving, we all think we can smoke a few joints and we can get in the car and we'll be fine. Well, you won't be fine. I mean, there's plenty of research to show that just one joint will really mess with your kind of cognitive and your physical ability to deal with things. And when people are doing it under therapeutic conditions, they are doing it in such a way at such small quantities that the clinician is able to monitor for a couple of hours afterwards and say, okay, now it's gone out of your system. People who are using this sort of at street level and in what I would call an amateur way, they've got no idea what what's happening, how long it's going to last, what the impact is, and how they're operating. They probably think they're having the time of their life. Everything's very pretty, but I just don't like the idea of people using hallucinogenic drugs in uncontrolled circumstances without the proper sort of safety nets in place to help. I really don't like the idea of.
It's open to so much abuse.
It is
exactly, so much abuse when people are not in their right minds. Going back to the ayahuasca ceremonies, the reason, they're like, one of the things that drives me nuts is, so we are very, as human beings, we want to find the magic pill, right? Let me find, I mean, Ozempic. That's why Ozempic took off like a rocket. What is the magic pill? And I want to say, to be fair, there's a lot more to obesity and losing weight. And, I think Ozempic has its place and it can be really helpful. But, if we could all take a pill that made us young, tanned and gorgeous, we would all take the pill, right? Because I
certainly would. I certainly would.
But, that we are predisposed to these quick fixes. And the one thing that this is why I don't like hypnotherapy either, is they're both passive. They're both being done to you. You just show up, you take the ayahuasca, you do your ceremonies, blah, blah. It's like, it's just very passive. That's still not going to change anything in 6 weeks when your boss is an arsehole and you get a resentment, or you don't have to have boundaries with your co-workers. It's like, it's just passive.
Yes.
And it's like, do it to me, fix me, do it to me, and then off I go. And that's what drives me. And I just think I think the ayahuasca stuff, it appeals to.
But also I think that applies to kind of just the therapeutic use of hallucinogenics. Without doubt, I have seen people who have been deeply traumatized able to make a breakthrough because of the reduction in their sort of barriers and defenses through taking a very, very small quantity of something like ketamine or some hallucinogen under therapeutic clinical circumstances. I have seen that happen, but I think it's so difficult to kind of to get the message across to people that you're playing around with things, and people who have got mental health conditions sort of are slightly prone to depression, are slightly prone to personality disorder, whatever they might be prone to. You have to be very careful about playing with that. And I know that this is me coming across as an old-fashioned therapist, but first of all, I like face-to-face stuff. I much prefer that to online stuff. But I think there's something about, okay, I've got a client, right? We're going to give all our clients a microdose, and we're going to shortcut everything, and people will only need 3 sessions and they'll be off. And I think it buys into that, as you said, that passive, I don't have to do much work here. The drugs are going to do the work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have to do the real hard work that's required in therapy. And I know that may come across as being really old school therapeutic stuff, but I think the kind of people are looking for a shortcut to doing the hard work that produces the wonderful benefits of therapy over with a measured intervention, so that people aren't overwhelmed. And I do think there is something about that kind of quick fix mentality that also buys into wanting to have therapy under the influence of some kind of mood altering drug. And I think, as you've said, and we've probably said several times already, I think that is potentially useful with very traumatized, shut down, defended people. For people who are just dealing with I don't want to make it trivialize it, but who've got sort of, difficult histories, some traumatic events, some things like that. To me, there's nothing to beat kind of the client doing the work of working these things out with the help of a therapist without trying to shortcut it.
Yeah, there's something about process and
Mm.
like, you know, I've seen this argument again going back to Ozempic, where people are like, it's great, people are losing, but we're seeing people horrendous side effects, and people just regain the weight, as opposed to learning about your diet and exercising. And there's something here about process, about the
Hmm.
process of healing, about the process of understanding yourself, about the
Yeah.
process of learning about your, why you are the way you are, that is so valuable, that that quick fixes skip so many parts of such an important process. And part of me is like, feels like, I don't know, it feels like an old-fashioned argument. It's like, whereas like, yeah, I just want to take the pill and be all right, but
Yeah.
there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's only so much that medication can give you, that that the processes that we're in are so valuable. So there was this news article that I noticed, and it just made me feel okay. Well, first of all, let me talk about this. So I don't know if you noticed this in London. There's a sex therapist who's being sued by a former client, because he used sexual penetration as a therapeutic technique, and she said
Okay.
she didn't
Interesting.
consent to that. So
Interesting.
I just want to say, like, first of all, the, the how this is just going to be open to abuse. Don't think that there aren't bad apple therapists, because there are, and
Yeah.
there's quite a history of, and I have to say, it's male therapists in positions of power, abusing that power for sexual contact with their female clients that was not consensual. And this one is wide open for that. When you've got control, you can be suggestive because someone's under the influence of microdosing. So I think there's a potential for abuse there is really concerning. But this was in February. This was on Sky News. Mums on magic mushrooms, why parents are microdosing Class A drugs. The use of magic mushrooms has increased in the UK in the last few years, in part due to a trend for microdosing, tiny doses below the perceptual threshold. Again, you don't know that because you can't tell what's in it. Many users are parents who say the drugs help with the stresses of modern day life. And
Hmm.
never has a sadder sentence been written.
Yeah.
Many users are parents who say the drug helps with the stresses of modern day life. I mean, that just made me want to cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you need to take magic mushrooms to be a modern parent because it's
Yeah.
unsurvivable
Yeah.
otherwise. That is really sad. And then it talks about a 36-year-old who's microdosing because it eases the stresses of modern life. And she says, I'm a better parent. She feels calmer, happier, less anxious. I mean, I want her to feel calmer and happier and less. I love that for her. She doesn't catastrophize. She says she's more present. Um, Rather than me trying. I mean, I just think there's got to be a better way. Like, are you driving? Is she driving? Can you drive? What? Like, there's
Sure.
just like so
Yeah.
much there that is just so freaking sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to track back. I mean, I'm obviously aware that there are, I don't know, plenty of male therapists and dentists and God knows what else who will take advantage
Yeah,
of their position.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I would say that there are plenty of abusive female therapists as well. They may not be sexually abusive, but they are abusive.
yeah. I mean, that's in every profession there's
Yeah.
bad apples
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
can be, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm just thinking of like depressed 25-year-old women, and I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. No, I just
there's
think
okay.
to me the difficult. I mean, I'm absolutely sure that in the therapeutic clinical environment, this is going to be something that is going to be utilized and offered to clients much more regularly than it was 5 years ago. It's going to be something that's going to be part of the kind of menu that you can have if you're looking for therapy. This is going to be part of that menu. That, I think, is inevitable. And, fair play if you want to do that and you feel that you've been clinically assessed correctly and you trust the person who's doing the agency that's doing the whole thing, then fair enough. My worry with it is how, because it's been done therapeutically in clinical environments, that has given the message, and I know I've already probably said this, it's given the message to kind of young, wealthy people that, I don't know why I keep on saying wealthy, because it happens across all sections of society, but it's given the message that this is mentally beneficial for you to do this. And that is where it starts to get incredibly messy, because the difference between, it's the same as, ketamine is used in operations, not just on animals, but on humans as well, prior to an anesthesia. But the difference between that and regular use of ketamine on a daily basis is they're just completely different things. One is used under incredibly controlled circumstances. The other one is doing unbelievable harm to your body and causing a lot of people serious bladder problems and things like that. And so to me, the problem of this is that, the more it gets embraced by the medical community as a really beneficial way forward, the more it's going to bleed out into society, where younger people, people, not young people, younger people are going to perceive it to be really beneficial. And I don't think it is. I think it may at times be a great experience, probably for some people, but I think the dangers are there. The activities you might indulge in while you're still stoned or under the influence are potentially dangerous. I think that the lack of control and supervision is what causes problems. And I think I've heard quite a few young people. Well, I keep on saying young, but everybody's young to me nowadays. But I've heard quite a few people who are kind of dressing it up as, this is really enlightening. I'm really enlightened for doing this. You said earlier on about Elon Musk or something, but I'm sure he's probably got his lawyers already working on it. But but that kind of message that this is. I remember when that so-called super drug came up. Oh God, how many years ago? 15 years ago, and students were using this super drug. It wasn't anything
what was that?
It was amphetamine, basically. It just made people work longer hours, but it was called the smart drug. But actually, it was just a variation of amphetamine that allowed people to study longer for greater lengths, but it didn't enhance their brain capability. But it kind of got sold into the general population as being the smart drug. If you take this drug, you're going to learn more. Well, you will learn more because you'll be learning for longer hours, but not necessarily doing yourself any good.
Yeah, so this article about, listen to this just makes me feel sad. So this is another mum. She's been microdosing for 5 years. She takes tiny doses, sometimes when her children were present, and chose to try it as an alternative to alcohol, using drops once or twice a week during periods of taking a break from drinking wine. I mean, she gives, she's not saying where she gets it from again, but she says, while one experience left her in tears, I just cried and cried, had lots of emotions to get out. She said others have been happy, where she's just laughed and laughed. And some microdoses say the effects are similar to a small glass of wine, where this woman says they are more subtle. So when my kids are around, it made me more in tune with them. This is the bit that drives me crazy.
Yeah,
it's
that is deluded
I'm
nonsense.
Like, can you not see that? I'm just, call me old school, call me old fashioned. I want to be fully present in my life without the aid of anything. But it sounds like what she's doing is that she was drinking too much and she didn't really want to quit that. She wanted to find an alternative. I'm just calling BS on all of it. I'm just calling BS on all of it. It's no way to live, people, not like artificially inducing feelings. That's what artificially inducing states.
Yeah.
It's no way to live.
No, I mean,
it just drives me crazy.
That example you gave just then was, well, on one occasion I was crying uncontrollably. I had a lot of feelings to get out, which kind of, great. But you did have 2 children with you. Hopefully the father was there to, or the partner was there to kind of assist with that. But who knows? But I mean, and the next time she was laughing uncontrollably. Well, it's the use of the word uncontrollably that bothers me. children, I don't know how old the children are, but I mean, children watching their mother laugh hysterically probably get a little bit worried by it. I don't know. It may look jolly and happy, but actually, if you're just doing it uncontrollably, probably quite disturbing for children to be around that. I don't know. It doesn't feel. I don't know. I mean, obviously, if anybody knows anything about my history, you know that I used drugs a lot around my daughter, and it had a very negative impact on her life. And I didn't use any drugs at all around my son, and I think the difference was or is apparent. You can't bring up a child with alcohol and drugs around, and not for it to have a negative impact on the children.
Yeah, and I want to say that people are going to say, well, there's lots of parents who are taking antidepressants and all that kind of stuff,
Sure.
and it's a massive difference. That's all clinically controlled. I think there's lots of people who are overprescribed for.
Yep.
I mean, I'm definitely supportive of medically assisted treatment. I'm all for that. What I'm all for is moving people towards the way that they can function best, and I think ultimately it's what she's describing is, I think alcohol and microdosing, it creates this bubble around you. And I don't think the connection that you have with people is as authentic as what they think it is.
Sure.
Like, you think of the times when you're drinking, taking drugs and you feel connected to people. Like in that time, you feel like you're really connected, but you kind of look back and I feel like I wasn't. Yeah. I kind of, it's the artificially created states. As human beings, I'm just, the hill that I will die on is that there's just nothing better than just being fully whole and being fully present. And I recognize that for some people, because of histories or whatever, that may not be possible for them. They need some, with the right drugs and the right psychiatrist, that's fine. But this isn't what we're talking about here. No. It's an escapism for life. I mean, I just find it so sad that mum, like, again, we've got to a place where it's like another version of Mother's Little Helper, isn't it? Just another version of, like, in the 60s, give them Valium, then they won't realise how freaking awful it is to be a mum with no support. And
yeah, I mean, it is, and I always rail against young people drink less nowadays, and well, first of all, I don't see the evidence, and as I said earlier on privately to you, that the English UK deaths of alcohol misuse have gone up 20% in the last 2 years, but I think the big thing nowadays is young people drink less. Well, yeah, maybe they are, but they're doing a lot of ketamine, and they're doing a lot of microdosing, and they're doing a lot of weed, and they're doing a lot of drugs. They may not be drinking so much, but they're doing, trust me, they're not all sitting there stone cold sober, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to mention as well, the side effects, all of this goes through your liver, like the potential to damage your organs. Like anything that we put in our bodies, including paracetamol, has a potential to damage our organs. And I'll take a paracetamol when I've got a headache or period pains or whatever. But what I want to call out here is, I think this microdosing is kind of, it's seen as elite. I think it's seen as superior to drinking. I think that there's a whole culture around it. Elon Musk is definitely talked about it, which is probably, it's a big thing in the Silicon Valley in California. And I just see it as high-end drinking. That like, mate, I think that there's better ways that you can get through your day and live your life than having to take a hallucinogenic drug. That's kind of where I'm at. I just think there's better ways.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think playing around with alcohol is dangerous. Playing around with all drugs is dangerous. Playing around with things that can, you're unlikely to get a sort of a mental breakdown as a result of alcohol use. You definitely could potentially have a mental breakdown as the misuse of hallucinogenics.
For sure.
Because you don't know, you haven't, you've been told that it's beautifully made and made by Magic Pete in wherever, and he knows all his
Oh
stuff.
no, I know them. I know them.
Yeah,
Like they don't give a fuck about
yeah.
what's in this stuff.
And well, they would say they're like sort of some fine wine sommelier. That they really
Yeah.
know their stuff here. They've really gone into it. So, and it's, as you said, it's dressed up as kind of some people talk about fine wines. They're talking about fine hallucinogenics in the same sort of way, and it feels to me yet another dangerous path available for people to go down that I think would be probably better taken if we went down a kind of a steadier path that doesn't put us in any kind of danger.
I think it would be better if we start the processes of healing the wounds within us and being able to function and enjoy the world without any chemical interference. What the other thing that really does worry me is pharmaceutical companies are very interested in this. And I think from what I've read that there is this small group of people that can really be helped by it, but it's a small group of people.
Yeah.
It's not when pharmaceuticals companies want to get in on it, they want like massive market share. They want like they're interested in getting a lot of people on it. And my concern is that this will eventually go into the marketplace. I mean, I do think that there's some research coming back about SSRIs now that they're not as effective. They're not like effective. We're learning a lot more. Like 30 years now, 30 plus years in the marketplace. We're seeing some not great, they're not helpful long term, that kind of stuff. So they'll be looking for the alternative. And, I just feel like, is that what's going to happen to the population? We're just all going to be drugged up just to get through the day and not notice.
Aldous Huxley was talking about Soma in Brave New World, which was a drug that the whole population took just to sort of keep them at peace and quiet them down. And
exactly.
And I think I'm sure everybody would be very happy if there weren't people demonstrating and creating a fuss, and everybody was very passive. And I remember reading Brave New World in the 60s or whenever it was. Yeah, 60s I read it, I think. And here we are nowadays with drug companies desperately trying to find a marketable equivalent of Soma, where they can just keep everybody happy.
Yes. Keep us all happy. Not notice the corruption or the wars or the
and I quite like the fact that my life is up and down. I mean, I'm certainly content most of the time. Sometimes I'm sad, but I've had a really spectacular week with my son and his achievements. I want to be able to enjoy that absolutely purely for what it is, a really pleasant. I don't want to have to enhance that enjoyment with alcohol or a drug, or I don't want to go and watch what he's just done under the influence of something so I don't actually see it properly. I want to experience life, loves, and all that it has to throw at me, as long as it's not death, with a degree of reality. Like I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah. I had an amazing thought there and it's gone. Oh, God.
That's the trouble with amazing thoughts. They do go. I have lots of them every day. And then before I've had a chance to speak, they've disappeared. It's incredible how it happens.
I know what it is. It's the full spectrum of the human experience. I think what we're moving away. I think what culturally we do is there's something wrong with you if you have difficult or uncomfortable feelings. Those can be fixed and taken away immediately. You should only ever always have good feelings.
Yes.
And we are designed as human beings to have access to the full spectrum of the human experience, which is all of our feelings from the worst to the best.
Yeah.
Because within them all there is a richness that makes us human in a way that is transcendental, that is beyond anything that any chemical can create. That there's something about And so, yes, we need more support and to learn how to better navigate these difficult experiences, because that's why I use substances, because I didn't know.
Sure.
But that's kind of where I'm at, is that it's skipping over really important parts of the human process that will enrich you. There's a Buddhist nun that I love, Pema Chodron, and I know I said it saying her name wrong, but anyway, she talks about like this idea of happiness is a Western creation, that we can't be happy all the time. That's just ridiculous and
Sure.
impossible.
Yeah.
And she says that what we do is we're minimizing the importance of struggle and how important struggle is, and that struggle is always going to be part of the human experience. And there's so much richness in that. And I just think that that's really true. Like if you I just look at my kids, how they develop, there's so much struggle with growing up, like learning to hold a pencil, learning to walk. There's so much struggle that we don't ever think about. Well, I think parents are beginning to take away their children's struggles, but we never look at a child when they're learning to walk. That's a struggle. Maybe they're not a walker. Maybe they're not a walker. Maybe they're not a walker, Like we just let them struggle until they figure out and they learn how to walk. So I think that's a metaphor for life, that life, there is struggles, there is a way to navigate those struggles without chemicals, and there is richness and reward in the struggles. And that is my profound, amazing thought.
And it was a good one. It was a good one. I
Not bad, right?
Yeah, I think people who are, will label just the ups and downs of life as either manic or depressed or something, actually, but some of it is just, life is very sad at times. Life is sad at times, and life is joyous at times. But I think we have to be very careful that we don't, any time that we feel anything less than sublimely happy, feel that we need to medicate that condition to rise us up to a sort of base level of contentment, whereas sometimes we just have to be sad for a while, and learn, as you said, the resilience to kind of overcome that. And I mean, I know that I've banged on about this several times during these podcasts over the years, but I learnt more from one of the most painful experiences of my life when I was about 5 years clean, from the sadness of the abandonment of this incident. I learnt more from overcoming that than almost anything else that's happened in my recovery, because I realized I was stronger than I thought I was. I could cope with more than I thought I could do. And I wouldn't have learnt that if I'd gone rushing off to medicate, feeling what I was at the time, deeply depressed and abandoned.
And because it would interrupt the process, and see, I'm all about process. The process is the most important thing. Don't steal the process from people. And sometimes in that process is struggle and darkness and all of that kind of stuff. And what I want people to know is you're not alone. Get some help. Get a community. Get some tools. Do those things instead of just going to medicating all of that. It's that process that you went through was life enriching for the rest of your life. Same. I've been through processes that in the time felt pretty blur, but I'm really glad I went through them, because the richness I got from them, I could not have got anywhere else. And that's the point I think we're making, is that those processes are the enriching part of the human experience that human beings have had for thousands of years. Don't miss them. Don't miss them. There's so much more.
Yeah.
So I think people may find this episode controversial. We might get people push back, and
I've got a feeling we're going to get.
Microdoses.
I think we're going to get quite a lot of pushback on this one. Yep.
Yeah, we'll see. I'd love to know what you guys think if you have these experiences. We're pretty much on the same page with this.
Yeah.
We're for medically assisted treatment in the right circumstances, the right conditions. Lots of times people are overprescribed. This is open to abuse, and microdosing is just high-end drinking. It's just drug taking with a fancy name.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Drug taking with a fancy name.
That feels
to make it not sound like drug taking. That's what it is.
Yep.
All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Love to know your thoughts, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.